Hey everybody, welcome back for a late edition of Lunch Break Live today with me, Ivana. And we just finished up watching Governor Kay Ivey's press conference about reopening Alabama and what's going to change on Friday, May 1st, and how this new safer at home order is different than the stay at home order that we have been under here in Alabama. So there's a lot to talk about here. I know all of you have a lot of questions. If you have questions that did not get answered, or you did not hear the answers to in that press conference, please comment them here. I will be checking it on my phone right here, and we will do our best to answer them. If we can't answer them for you, we will get somebody who can, and we will get back to you. So without further ado, I know this is a very busy man today. This is our Montgomery reporter, Mike Kaysen. He has been covering the State House for a long time, and Mike was there today. He actually got us that video from the press conference. So Mike, let's just get into it. Tell us how this new, quote, safer at home order is different than the stay at home order that we've been under, and when this safer at home order goes into effect.
It goes into effect at 5 p.m. Thursday when the current order expires. As the way I understand it, there's three major changes.
So, Mike, let's just get into it.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Retail. All retail stores now can be open. Previously, there were some categories of retail stores that could not be open, but all can be open now as long as they have 50% or less of occupancy. The beaches will reopen. Gatherings of no more than 10 people. Groups are supposed to stay at least 6 feet apart. And medical procedures and dentist's office and elective procedures, those will reopen. Those were the three big changes, is my understanding. Some of the things that people may have been expecting the governor to do that she did not do, she did not reopen restaurants. They're still restricted to curbside, takeout, or delivery. And then just like barbershops, salons, massage parlors, tanning salons, all those are still closed. And she said, they will continue to review those and, reassess that soon. But I think some people may have been expecting her to go further than she did. Some people may have not expected her to go as far as she did, but as she said, she wasn't going to make everybody happy, but this was an incremental step, as she said she was going to do all along.
Right. Well, I took some notes during that too. I'm looking down at them to make sure I don't misquote anybody, but I know that these restrictions are being rolled back in phases. And Scott Harris, the state health officer, said that Alabama did not meet the requirements that the White House had talked about regarding the 14-day slow of cases, things like that. So that's why Dr. Scott Harris and Kay Ivey cited that they are doing this kind of slower reopening. I know that these, like you said, Mike, these restrictions are going to ease up on these retail places on the 30th, which is Thursday at 5 p.m. So that means right. Friday's like the first business day where retail establishments can be opened. And that was at 50% occupancy, correct?
Right, correct.
Now, restaurants, again,
right.
We're getting a lot of comments on there. I'm looking. Tommy Bozeman asked, when can he eat his chips and salsa in his favorite restaurant? I'm with you, Tommy. That's my favorite meal as well. You can't do it now. Restaurants are still only curbside, takeout, pickup. We had some other questioning about, I know you said dentists are also open on Friday, so that answers a couple questions we've got. We've had several people ask about daycares. Can you give us any information on that?
No change in daycares. They can be open. They just cannot have more than 12 children in a room. That was unchanged with this order.
We've got a couple questions about courthouses. Do you have any information on that?
That is a good question. That didn't come up at the press conference. I don't know. I would have to check into that. I'm sorry. I don't have the answer to that.
We'll get you information on these courthouses. Somebody else had about a tag office, I guess the DMV office. Again, we'll get you answers on those. And right now, this is all kind of still unfolding. We're just showing you and giving you what we know at the moment. I know that there were some questions about the beaches reopening when occupancy at retail stores was limited to 50%. There's a lot of people who have questions about the beaches reopening. How are you going to, or how are local law enforcement going to make sure that this 6 foot distance between people and no more than groups of 10, how is that going to be enforced?
Well, the governor said that there were discussions with local law enforcement in Baldwin and Mobile counties, and primarily Baldwin County, I guess, and they are committed to enforcing that. So, I wouldn't think they'd have a heavy hand on that, but I would think they're going to have a presence on the beach, and that was pretty much the message. Gatherings of 10 or less, and the groups have to stay at least 6 feet apart. And so I would think there'll be a presence there to enforce that.
Now, some of these...
that was the message.
Right. Now, some of these retail establishments that can open at that 50% occupancy, keeping people 6 feet apart and no more than groups of 10 clustered together, that goes into effect Friday, like we said. Now, some of these places that are going to be able to reopen are some of our smaller, are these clothing boutiques? Are these plant shops and nurseries? Or what kind of establishments are going to open? Can you go into detail about that?
Well, when I talked to a couple of legislators yesterday, they were talking about how they hoped the governor would take this step, and they were just talking about how the rules in effect now, they didn't think were particularly fair because, for example, furniture stores could not be open, but big box stores that happen to sell furniture could be open. So it'd be furniture stores, small clothing stores, department stores. I assume would be covered by this. Any retail store now can be open with the 50% occupancy rate, and a lot of them could not, that did not meet that previous essential retailers category, which was a long list, but it wasn't didn't include everybody. Of course, There were a lot of people still going to stores, and like I heard one of the legislators I talked to said, the stay-at-home order is really not a stay-at-home order. If you go to Lowe's, the parking lot looks like a kicked-over ant bed, which is kind of what it looked like in Montgomery Sunday. Right. So there were a lot of people still going to the big box stores, but the smaller stores were sort of left out. But that will change starting Friday.
And I know something I've gotten a lot of questions about are gyms. So gyms are still ordered to be closed, correct?
That's right. Gyms are still ordered. That is correct.
Gyms and other athletic facilities, I believe, is how the Alabama Department of Health phrased it.
Right.
And
so the only categories...
Go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, so the only categories that really changed were the all retail stores can be open, the medical procedures, and the beaches were the 3 big ones.
I'm just looking through some of our comments. We still got some questions about court, about DMV offices, state offices, things like that. We didn't hear that in the press conference. We'll get that to you. There are some more questions about any sort of curfew, and that was not something that we heard in the conference.
Right. The state has not had a curfew. I know Montgomery has a curfew. I don't know what other cities do, but no, that's not an issue in the state health order.
And I know that there's, for a lot of people, different counties and different cities are doing things a little bit differently in regards of drive-up things, curbside service, things like that. So this order doesn't necessarily change those things. This order basically just says, look, we want you to minimize your travel and minimize where you go, according to the governor. But if you need to go to a retail shop, you can go and you can support those small businesses instead of supporting the corporate companies. Right.
That's correct. And another thing, and I don't know how much practical effect this will have, but the wording in the order, previous order was you were ordered to stay at home except for these essential activities, and now it says people are encouraged to stay at home. So I guess that will make some difference, but
it's kind of the difference between
the probably doesn't make that much.
Right. It's like we were under the stay-at-home order, and now we're under the safer-at-home order. Very similar wording here. Right. So the details is where these things matter for sure. Getting some more questions about dentists. Yes, your dentist offices will be able to open on Friday, along with other elective medical procedures. Churches. your churches are not going to be open under this order. These are
Right.
places of worship are still closed for public gatherings. Is there any word about when those will be able to open up, Mike?
Well, Jay Wolf, the former pastor at First Baptist Church, who's the in here in Montgomery, who's the governor's pastor, he talked about that, and he said, it's just not quite time to do that. Following, it's not time for large gatherings in churches again, but they're going to assess that going forward, and hopefully can start that soon. But no, churches still can't have the large worship services.
And what about nail salons, tanning salons, massage therapy centers, or places like that?
Those are still closed, unchanged.
Still closed. Susan has a really good question. I don't know if we know the answer, but she says, are there any change in nursing home visitation?
No, not any change in that. I'm not sure if that was. I don't think that came up today, but there was no change on that.
And there's also some questions about parks and especially sports, especially baseball parks. We are in baseball season, and baseball fields are definitely something that I know a lot of our, we've got professional baseball here. We've got also Little League and all of our other sporting events like that. I'm a baseball fan. I believe you are too, Mike. But I don't think there was any change in that. Was there?
No change in that. The governor was asked about high school football season, and she said, well, we're in late April, so it's not. She was asked whether there's going to be a high school football season, and if athletes would be able to use the school facilities to train, and she said, no announcement about that at this point.
Right. And two, I think that, it is important to note that Dr. Scott Harris recapped our coronavirus cases in Alabama when he took the podium. He said that there's been 6,600 cases as of today in Alabama, and there's been 242 deaths. So that is just something to note, something that Scott Harris did add in to his time on the podium at the press conference. More questions about daycares, 12 and under, 12 people and under rather, and they will open. So no change in this order from that.
Right.
What else have we missed talking about this, Mike?
Well, just as far as the state of the outbreak in Alabama, Dr. Harris, sort of what he said the last couple of weeks, that it looks like hospitals will be able to handle the amount of patients. We've got enough ventilators, so that's good news. And the caseload is flattened out, but we haven't achieved the 14-day decline that was called for in the president's phase 1 plan. And there's several factors that go into that 14-day decline, but we're not there yet. So I guess that's the next advance we hope for in this as we go through this.
Something that I think was interesting was that the governor talked about masks and encouraged people to wear masks and encourage them to keep up their hygiene and washing your hands for at least 20 seconds, the things that we've heard since the beginning of March. And Mike, I know you're in Montgomery. I am in Birmingham, but I do think it's important to note for any of our viewers who are in Birmingham, Birmingham has issued an ordinance that says if you go out in public in a store, you need to wear a mask. You must wear a mask. That is something that the mayor put out this morning, and that does not include if you're going to walk your dog or you're exercising outside or anything like that. But that is when you are going in public and you are going to come in contact, even if you're 6 feet apart or more, it doesn't matter. That is Birmingham's ordinance of the day. Now, something that is also important, I think, that we note is Jefferson County and Mobile County have their own health offices and their own health departments, right, and they could issue separate orders from the governors, correct?
Correct. Yes, Dr. Harris has talked about that yes, they have the authority in Jefferson County and Mobile County to issue their own health orders.
Do you know if there's any plans of that to happen? Have you heard anything about Jefferson or Mobile issuing separate orders?
I have not. I'm sorry, I haven't followed that in the last few days, but
that is something, again, we just want y'all to be aware of, because it is another facet in this huge coronavirus story. So the mask order right now, though, from my understanding, is only for Birmingham. So more, there could be other places that follow up with similar ordinances, but for right now, that's a Birmingham thing. And again, so Susan says masks are encouraged, not mandated. Correct. That is what the governor said. In Birmingham, though, it's a little bit different. The mayor said that they are required. So it's important to check with your local city and county regulations and rules before you make any major life decisions at this point. I think that's fair to say. And the governor is, Mike, when he streamed this press conference for us, he had to put his microphone on the podium, so it was hard to hear the questions being asked. But I could tell Mike's voice when he asked a question about when are we going to know about restaurants and gyms and some of these other establishments that are still closed. What was her answer to that, Mike?
I didn't get a real specific answer on that. She was just saying that, we are aggressively looking at that, and they're talking to the Restaurant Association, and it's just, I think she didn't use these specific words, but she said all along this is going to be data driven, and I think they're going to look at the numbers and go accordingly. But she didn't commit to doing that in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or any specific time, but indicated it would be reassessed soon.
We're just going to answer a couple more quick questions. Mike has actually got to go cover some legislative stuff because, like I said, he's a very busy man in Montgomery today. One quick question I think you can answer quickly is playgrounds. So we know children's playgrounds have been closed. Are those reopened?
I don't believe there was any change in that. That's not on the little handy list I have of things that didn't change, but I don't think that changed.
So recapping, the changes here are retail stores. So your local stores, you can have the option of going there. If you've been going to big box stores, you have the option now of going to those smaller, maybe locally owned stores. Those are the big changes here. Restaurants, gyms, those places are still closed. You are still encouraged to wear a mask in public. In Birmingham, you are required to. And the governor also says you cannot be in a group of 10 people or more. Or if you are even in a smaller group, if your group cannot maintain 6 foot of distance, then you still can't be in that group. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct.
So that's just correct. Something for everybody to note. This does not mean that your parties or anything like that are back on. And this 10 people rule is something that she said could be enforced.
Right. And then the beaches, we talked about the beaches are the other big change, the beaches being open, and also the medical procedures, elective procedures, dental care, and all that reopening starting Friday, which is a pretty big deal.
Right. I'm hoping
it's a real big deal.
Beaches are a huge deal in Alabama. The weather is getting hot, which is perfect beach weather. And we expect to see some people out there on Friday. So we will definitely keep y'all up to date on that. And I'm going to give you one last question, Mike. Does the governor still recommend people who are in the high-risk category stay at home?
Yes, she does. That hasn't changed.
So if I'm looking through, and I'm so sorry if we couldn't answer your question. If we didn't, please give us a little bit of time and we will get those answers to you as soon as possible. And there are a lot of things that are going to be happening in the next couple of days. This is a fluid situation, so we will keep you up to date as always here with me on Ivana's Lunch Break Live and on AL.com. So if you have any other questions, please let us know, and we will do our best to get answers for you. So thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you taking the